Hello, my lovely friends, it's Margaret, and today we are going to talk about my top 10 books of the decade. So, welcome to day 3 of the 12 Days of Margaret. So, if you don't know, this is a little series I'm doing to just kind of wrap up my year and let you guys get to know me a little bit better. I will have the playlist linked up top in a card if you missed the first couple of videos. Basically, I realized that I have never sat down and actually given you guys a definitive list of my favorite books or my favorite, I would say, series. So today I'm just going to be talking about the top 10 books that I have discovered this decade, and then in a couple of days I will be telling you guys my favorite series of all time. That's pretty much it. So let's just get into the book. With the exception of the last two, none of these are in any particular order. I don't love one of these more than the last one, except like maybe if I've read it recently, I probably love it more because it's fresh. But these are the ones that I keep thinking about and I want everyone to read. The first book I want to talk to you guys about is Howls by Diana Wynne Jones. You've seen me talk about this book on multiple occasions because I have beaten it up to death. Like, this book is on its last legs almost. The reason that I love Howl's Moving Castle is it's just a fun, quirky middle grade, but it also has so much depth to it. Like, this is a book that I, as an adult, still get things out of. I still feel seen by this book. I love how quirky the characters are. I love the bonds between Sophie and her sisters. I love a little romance. It's a little bit antagonistic and bantery, and you know how I feel about that. I just love me some banter and some antagonism in my romance. And it's also one of the most creative, ridiculous plots you will have ever read. The writing is fantastic. It's witty, it's clever, it's effective. In fact, one of the things that I love about Diana Wynne Jones's writing is that she doesn't have to use a lot of words to still make you feel things. Like, some of her stuff is very, very simple, but it is very evocative at the same time. I love this book so much, and I also probably need a new copy. The next book that I want to talk to you guys about is The Wrath and the Dawn by Renee Ahdieh. This is a YA retelling of the Scheherazade story, and I love it. Despite the premise of the fact that she is just basically trying to prolong her life from this guy who is trying to kill her, basically, has one of the most romantic moments in all of literature. You know, if you've read this book, you know which moment I'm talking about, because like, I was floored by the craft and what Renee Ahdieh had been building towards. I love the fact that this is about two people who are on opposite sides of an impossible situation, and they're there for their own reasons, and then they kind of get drawn into this relationship that is more than they bargained for. I love it when that happens. I just do. It's so much fun. Shazi is such a fun female protagonist. She's kick-ass. She's not necessarily like a punchy kind of heroine, but she is very good at what she does, and she knows what she's doing. She's able to really use the magic that she discovers in this book. Also, Renee Ahdieh's world building is rich and wonderful, and you like feel like you are in this desert city thing. Also, I love the fact that this it takes a slightly problematic character and it makes him understandable. You understand why he is doing what he is doing. You kind of like it puts a little bit of a motive behind what he's doing, rather than have him just like be doing it because he feels mad about something. I appreciate why Shazi is in the situation that she is in a little bit more than you would maybe in the 1001 Arabian Nights. I love retellings, and I feel like this is such a good, clever one that reimagines the story, that makes it a little bit more modern, and that really just feeds my angsty soul. The next book that I want to talk to you guys about is A Wounded Name by Dot Hutchison. Now, Dot is a dear friend of mine, and I absolutely adore this book. So this is a YA retelling of Hamlet from Ophelia's point of view. You may not know this, but I hate Hamlet with a burning passion. I had to do it for a project in school. I also think that all of the characters in Hamlet are absolute idiots and so stupid. Like, just kill him. Like, why did he not just kill his uncle? He knew what had happened, and coups like that were normal in that day and age. However, this is a YA retelling of Hamlet that really is very faithful to the original, but it's also a little bit more modern. It's set at a boarding school, so instead of being the king and queen of Denmark, Hamlet's parents were like the headmaster and headmistress of this Elsinore Academy, and Dot's writing is so beautiful and lyrical. Like, this is the kind of, like I know people don't like necessarily purple prose, but this prose is just, it's gorgeous. She does such a good job with Ophelia's character and giving her motivations of her own and a storyline of her own, and also making the part that she has to play in the story seem make more sense, basically. It makes more sense. It's more, I wouldn't say it's more proactive, but it's still, you understand why Ophelia is the way she is. You feel for her. I also kind of like the ending, the way she ends Ophelia's story. And I don't want to give anything away, but like the way this story ends is just not the worst thing that's ever happened to me. Which you would think, considering I hate it when main characters die, and yet here is this book, and I am okay with what happens at the end of this book. If you don't know the end of Hamlet, I don't know how to help you guys. I love this book so much. It is beautiful and wonderful. It's also very dark and twisted. There are trigger warnings for graphic, not graphic sexual, but like sexual violence. There is definitely some sexual violence in there with maybe some dubious consent as to how violent it gets. So I will say this is one where you maybe need to watch yourself when you're going into it if that's something that bothers you. But I still, like, as someone who doesn't particularly like those kinds of scenes, I was still okay with it. Also, be warned that there is some questionable, like, mental health practices in this book. Ophelia knows what she should be doing to take care of her mental health, but she doesn't necessarily do it. She's very bad at, like, doing things like taking her medication. So if that's something that you might have issues with, just know that going into this book. The next book that we are going to talk about is There's Something About Sweetie by Sandhya Menon. I absolutely adore this series. Sandhya Menon writes the sweetest, most complex, most entertaining relationships that I have ever had the pleasure of reading. I mean, I just absolutely adored the two main characters in this. I love the fact that there was so much great communication between them. Obviously, you gotta have some issues, but like the fact that they had such a healthy communication set up at the beginning of this fake dating relationship that they go on to really helps when we get towards the end and helps them get over these like hurdles that they have through the course of the story. I loved it. And this is just, I love these characters. I also love the way that Sandhya Menon does her representation. Obviously, as a white person reading a book about an Indian main character, there are a lot of things that are going to be new for me, but I feel like she does it in such a way that it's not holding your hand. She's not writing it for someone who has not experienced that culture, but she still manages to make it accessible to someone who has not been a part of the Indian culture. Also, look at this. This is the cutest, this is like the cutest thing ever. They are so adorable, and I love them. You're gonna notice that a lot of these is just because I love the relationship and the way that it goes down. So the next book on this list is The Scorpio Races by Maggie Stiefvater. I have read a lot of Maggie Stiefvater's books. This, by far, is my favorite. It might have something to do with the people eating horses. It just might. If you didn't know, I was that girl in middle school. But anyways, I love this book with my whole heart. I love Maggie Stiefvater's writing style. It is so wonderfully atmospheric. You feel like you are there. I literally like felt, even knowing that this island and the Scorpio Sea do not exist, I still felt like they existed. I also love Puck and Sean as main characters and as a couple. I'm trying not to say that too much, but at the same time, like, just assume that is the case with most of these. I like the main couple. And that is why it's one of my favorite books. I love the fact that even though they are being put head to head in this competition, they are still rooting for each other. They are still trying to help each other. So much is riding on both of them needing to win this race, and yet they don't let that make them nasty. They still, I just love that. I do. Like, how often do you see that in a book? It was great. I love the fact that Puck is spitting in the face of so many traditions on this island when she enters this race. That just makes me happy. Like, they're nonsensical, stupid traditions that are just there because misogyny and other things. And I just really appreciate it. I also appreciate the fact that, like, so many dudes are just like, I'm gonna capture this man-eating horse, and then they get eaten by them. Like, basically, that is the thing about this race. Like, so many of these guys are just, like, so stupid. And you see the fruits of that they're just being prideful and ridiculous and coming up with a really weird sport. Like, I mean, racing is not weird, but, like, racing man-eating. Anyways, I just love this. I love the family dynamic in it. I love the things that motivate Puck. And I love her relationship with her horse. I actually love a couple of relationships with their horse. Like, you know how some people are like they like the boy and their dragon stories? I'm the boy and their horse stories. That's me. Okay, so next I have to talk about The Sun is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. This is about Natasha and Daniel, and it is such a fantastic day-long love story. Like, you really, at the end of this book, believe that these two teenagers could have made the connection that they made in like 12 hours. I also really like the things that it tackles in this. It tackles a lot of stuff about immigration because Natasha is an immigrant who's being deported. It also tackles parents' expectations and how sometimes they can be completely different from what the child actually wants. It tackles a lot of interesting family dynamics. That is, like, she does such a good job writing these two characters and these two families. You feel like you know them. Another thing that I really like about this book is that as you're going about this day with Natasha and Daniel, you're also seeing snippets of the people that they come in contact with. And I love seeing how their lives touch other people and how other people end up touching their lives. I also know that people think that the ending is a little bit abrupt. I don't think so. I feel like I know where the rest of these two people's story is going. Like, it is not a mystery to me what happens when the epilogue ends. So no top 10 list will be complete without Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. This and the next book are tied for 3rd place on this list, probably, if I was doing places, because this book took me over and owned my soul last year. I have still not recovered from it. I also have never been so satisfied to not have my OTP kiss at all, which is a very odd experience for me. Please know that. And yet they were still exactly, they didn't do what I normally go into books wanting from couples, and yet they were still exactly where I wanted them to be at the end of this series. This had so many great moments. And this is really what gets me when we're talking about relationships. It had so many great moments of two people having to tear down their walls to get to a better place together, and I loved it. I also love the fact that, like, none of these characters compromise who they are. The ones that are good people at the very beginning of the series. Some of them have to learn a few things, and it makes me sad. But we're not going to talk about that. I was just so blown away by the way that Leigh Bardugo took this series and she wrapped it up in such a way that I was just like, this is a world I could live in forever, and yet I am also satisfied by what has happened. Like, I'm not as satisfied anymore because I know she wants to write a 3rd book in this series, but like, when I first finished it, I was satisfied. I love her world building. I love Ketterdam. Ketterdam is such a complex and interesting city. It reminds me a lot of Gotham from Batman, which makes me happy. I love how complex and realistic her characters are. Even her side characters. You're sitting there and you feel like you know them a little bit by the time we're done. Even the ones that, like, are only on there for 30 seconds and then they die. She just is such a master of storytelling in this series. It's such a good book. And if you have not read this series, what are you doing with your life? All right, the other one, this is an adult fantasy that I absolutely adore, and that is A Conjuring of Light by Victoria Schwab. This is the one of, because there have been a few, one of the best conclusions to a series that I have ever read. I was so flabbergasted by the places that Victoria Schwab was able to take the plot in this book, despite the fact that I wasn't sure how she was going to have a book, especially a book this, like a chunker like this. I didn't know how she was going to be able to pull this off, and yet she pulled it off. Whew. Sorry, I'm getting very, very excited because I love this series. Again, also love the main couple. I also love Lila Bard. I love the magic system, and I love the things that we learn about the magic system in this. I also love the fact that she takes this book and makes me feel things for the antagonist, or one of them. There are multiple antagonists in this series. But, like, she takes someone who I was really, like, just like, could you die in books 1 and 2? And she makes me go, you know, maybe they shouldn't die? Maybe I'd be okay if they didn't. Like, I wasn't actively rooting for them to survive, but I was like, you know, if they did survive, I wouldn't be mad about it. That is the power of V.E. Schwab. I love the characters. Again, this is another one where she does such a good job crafting her characters, or at least in my opinion. I feel like I know them. I feel like I can identify with every single one of them, even the ones that are frustrating. I love. Okay, so 2nd place goes to The Last Olympian by Rick Riordan. If you don't know that the Percy Jackson series is one of my favorite series, you obviously have not been on my channel for very long. But hi, my name is Margaret, and I am obsessed with the Percy Jackson series. Nice to meet you. This is another one that I think is one of the best conclusions to the series that it is in. I love how Rick is able to pull from things that happens in the previous books and bring them to such fruition. Like, you can see things that you didn't even think were important in books 1, 2, and 3 end up coming back around in books 4, and especially in book 5, which is this one. And it is he just is such a master storyteller when it comes to, he just does such a good job of wrapping the series up and giving you a satisfying conclusion. If there had been no more Percy Jackson books, now don't get me wrong, I'm so very happy that there are more Percy Jackson books, but if there had been no more Percy Jackson books, this is one of the best conclusions to a series I have ever read. This also has some great moments between my favorite couple, because, I waited for this book. I read 4 whole books for this book. It was, so this is one of the most satisfying, like, build-ups to a romantic relationship that you will ever find. I love Rick's character. I am much more of a character-driven reader than a plot-driven reader, and he delivers on both fronts here, and I love how his plot serves his characters and how his characters interact with his plots. Also, I'm obsessed with Greek mythology. I have been since I was a child, and he does such a good job of being clever about his Greek mythology. It's probably in my top 10 books of all time, but like, we're just gonna go with the decade. Okay, and the final book that I want to talk about, that is my favorite book, quite possibly, it is my favorite book of all time, guys. I love this book with my whole heart and soul, and that is The Mark of Athena by Rick Riordan. I love Annabeth Chase. She is my favorite daughter. And this is her book, and she is so good at what she does in this book, and it makes me so happy. Also, this book gives me the trope that I love the most happens. It delivers so many wonderful things for me. Again, I am a huge Perkabeth shipper. I love them, and I was waiting for a moment that happens in this book for 2 whole books, which means I had to wait 2 whole years for it. It was everything I wanted it to be. It was glorious and wonderful, and you dream of having moments like that in your relationship, really? You just do. Honestly, no, you don't, because the things that they had to go through to get to that moment, I would not want to go through. This is purely my favorite book because it is Annabeth's book. I can't deny the fact that House of Hades is much kinder to Perkabeth, sort of. Maybe what I should say is that House of Hades has a lot more of Percy and Annabeth being just this badass power couple. There's a lot of it, but not as much of them doing that in this book. However, it's still my favorite book of the series because it has that moment, and because it has so much of Annabeth just being able to take on her own quest. In Battle of the Labyrinth, which is the last quest that Annabeth had, we didn't really get her point of view, so I love the fact that we get to see how her mind works in this book. It made me so happy to be able to be in Annabeth's head for a little bit because I love her so much. So that was a slightly ranty take on all of my favorite books from this decade. Guys, I love books so much. They bring me so much joy, and I cannot wait to find new favorite books, but I just felt like we needed to put these down for posterity because I don't know, I love these books. These are the books that are my life. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy watching videos of me ranting about my favorite books, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. It lets me know that I need to make more videos like this. If you are new to my channel and you like videos about books and writing, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That is it for now, my friends. I will see you later when we will talk about more wordy, nerdy things. Bye!